Yeah, we are holiday podcasting. Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. It is Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. December 25th, big day. Hanukkah tonight. Happy holidays. New Year's coming up. Anything you're celebrating, hope you're having a great time with your family today. Busy today, guys? What are you looking forward to today?
The sweater. Show the sweater. Stand up, ready.
Oh, yeah. All right. Let's see what it says here.
Oh, I've seen this one on you before.
Yeah. It says, I don't know, Margot. And do we know the preceding line? Anybody know the preceding line?
No.
Why is the carpet all wet, Todd? I don't know, Margot. Yeah, it's a great moment. Unfortunately, you see the sweater, I've mentioned this before, it doesn't have a comma, right? So take a look.
Right. So it looks like it. I don't know, Margot.
Yeah, it's like it's stupid. I need to stitch out a comma. Anyway, it's been a rough night for me. So
I would just like to watch you stitch.
Oh, forget it. Yeah, I was gonna make a joke.
Can't even wrap a gift. How's he supposed to stitch something?
Oh, you got to see the gift wrapping I did. I forget the joke I was gonna say. It's a bad joke, but the gift wrapping I did, horrible.
Go get it. I want to see.
Yeah,
I used to take a picture. I took a picture.
You took a picture of how bad you wrapped a gift?
Yeah.
Why not go get the gift?
Is it righty or lefty?
Oh, I deleted the picture? Righty or lefty? What do you mean?
Yeah, Dave said picture again.
Southpaw.
Some things never change.
I don't know if you could see this, but like the side of the present is exposed because there wasn't enough wrapping paper.
You know what's
All
your
right,
friend?
anyway.
You know what's your friend?
Huh?
Gift bags are your friend.
No, this thing is huge. Like I'm
They
excited.
You get a gift bag.
It's a big gift. Anywho,
You know what I discovered yesterday, my wife's birthday is tomorrow. You know what I discovered yesterday? Is they now sell gift bags at Walgreens with the tissue paper already inside of it. So you can just buy it ready to go.
I'm sure it's like upcharged through the wazoo, though.
It's just easier.
Right, but you're probably paying like an extra $1.50 or whatever it is. Who gives a damn?
but you don't understand. We'll go to the show in a second. Tough calls for week 17 today and starter sit for Thursday night, Seattle and Chicago. You have to, like, on Christmas, unwrapping the present is really fun. You got to put it
adults. It's fine. The kids, they get it. Adults.
Oh, you still like? I'm going to be able to unwrap some presents today. And I'm excited about it. I'm sure there'll be some socks in there. Usually are, but and boxers. I need that stuff. So, all right, here we got a quick email of the day. It's from Luke.
I hope she went to the Star Trek store and got you some more stuff.
The Star Trek store.
All right, email at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Luke H says, I am a big Detroit Lions fan, and I wear my Jahmyr Gibbs jersey every Sunday. The only other Lions jersey that I own is a DeAndre Swift jersey. My opponent in the championship has both Gibbs and Swift. The question is, do I wear my jersey this week?
Yeah, yes. Whatever you want. Not going to change a damn thing with your fantasy.
If you've been wearing it to get to the championship, why would you change based on your opponent having the same player?
And Dave, I resent that response from you. You're the guy who told everyone to pick up Chris Godwin.
Well, but that makes sense.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good point. Here's what's coming up this week. It's a pretty normal week. You know, we got a mailbag. We got the Sunday morning stuff that we always tell you about. You can join us 10 a.m. Eastern on CBS Sports HQ, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. But next week, week 18, we will do a pretty normal week in terms of we'll do waiver wire. We'll do tough calls. We'll do start, sit, all that. But all of it will have some element of 2025 in it. We'll have early rankings at each position, that kind of stuff. So when we preview the games, I'll ask one question about 2025 for each game, that kind of stuff. So if you are not playing in week 18, which is most of you, we still will have important content for you next week. So
we should also do a little bit more DFS to give anybody that still wants to have some fantasy fun. I'm going to be sending emails out to everybody for their rankings for 2025, as we usually do. So should have hopefully a buffet of people's rankings.
Oh, the first pick, Bijan? I don't know that there's going to be a consensus first pick.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it.
It's going to be hard to move Jamar Chase for me.
Yeah, I get that for sure. And this is probably a good time to remind everybody that's still listening that we do off-season shows. What is it, like 3 times a week minimum during the off-season?
Minimum, yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to get to work on 2025 pretty quickly, everybody.
All right. Sorry for 5 minutes of no fantasy content. Here we go. News and notes. If Derek Carr is out this week, Spencer Rattler will start. They face the Raiders. Popular DST this week, I'm sure.
Love that the very first piece of fantasy content we give has to do with the Saints quarterback situation.
I'll think of it as the Raiders DST. It's all the quarterbacks. Mason Rudolph's going to start this week for Tennessee at Jacksonville. Drew Lock is going to start for the Giants against the Colts. And Aaron Rodgers is playing through an MCL injury, but he is going to play. So here comes the big news, the running back news. Trey Benson and James Conner were limited. They play on Saturday at the Rams, so a limited practice, listed as limited on Tuesday. I don't think teams are practicing today. Maybe, I don't know if any of them are. Maybe some.
Well, the Giants, for example, had a walkthrough Tuesday to not practice today.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, good start to the week for James Conner. J.K. Dobbins was limited. He has a chance to play this week. Tyrone Tracy, Jamie mentioned the Giants did a walkthrough because they're not practicing today. Tyrone Tracy was listed as a DNP. So again, you can take a shot at Singletary. If you have someone you don't need on your roster, go ahead, pick him up. You could drop him later in the week if you need to. Denver's backfield is crazy. They're facing the Bengals on Saturday. Tyler Beatty could play. Bidet, right? Tyler Beatty could play this week. Jaleel McLaughlin practice. Blake Watson's on the active roster. So I'm sure we're going to be saying don't trust any of these guys. Unless
we'd be saying that even if those guys weren't practicing.
Yeah, I mean, if McLaughlin were out or whatever, maybe Jauan, you're right. Alvin Kamara could play this week. We will see. And Justice Hill is out for today's game. Good wide receiver news. Christian Watson just has a bruise on his knee. So he could play this week at Minnesota. Very interesting game. We're going to talk about Jordan Love as a tough call. Will he throw the ball? That's what guys do against the Vikings, but that's not what the Packers typically do. Nelson Aguilar is out today, and Zay Flowers is questionable. So we're expecting Flowers. Keep an eye on it. With the inactives, that is the late game, right? That is the late game, the 4:30 game. Kansas City, Pittsburgh's at 1. Baltimore, Houston at 4:30 Eastern. Tight end news. Will Dissly practiced. So maybe throws confusion into the – well, no, he'd be the starter, but, the low end, not a guy that we want to start. Will Dissly. Offensive line. 2 Texans offensive linemen are out today. 2 Saints offensive linemen are going to be out this week, almost certainly. Not a guarantee with Eric McCoy, but likely. And Lucas Patrick, offensive guard, he's out for the season. And both starting tackles for the Cardinals are on IR. So keep that in mind. Is that going to affect your James Conner rankings if Conner plays this weekend at the Rams?
He might not be as high as he would. He certainly won't be as high as he was last week. So not 100% dealing with some offensive line issues and facing a actual run defense as opposed to what he faced last week. I think he'll still be a starter, though. I can't imagine most people are going to sit James Conner if he plays.
But I think you've got to lower expectations significantly. I wouldn't be surprised in the least if he played the lowest percentage of snaps that he's played in like a month because he's dealing with an injury, because other players are up, and because of the offensive line.
Well, potentially other players are up. We don't know if Benson's going to play.
Right. Like that's fair. Like if Benson ends up being inactive, then I mean, what are they really going to do? They're really going to use like Carter and DJ Dallas for
it doesn't. I mean,
that's not going to happen.
Obviously, if he's able to play, he should play. But like for a guy you just signed to a contract extension that has an injury track record, that's playing hurt when you just got eliminated from a franchise standpoint, doesn't make much sense to rush him out.
All right, so I missed a couple things here. Well, one, Andrea asks in the chat, any news on Jalen Hurts? Nope, no news. He's in the concussion protocol. But
it's worth mentioning and this is like a Heath thing, the Eagles are double-digit point favorites. And I don't think they'd be double-digit point favorites over Dallas with Kenny Pickett starting. So I almost wonder if the odds makers believe that Hurts is going to play.
And Ken Walker, I totally skipped that. So Ken Walker did not practice. Zach Charbonnet is good to go.
Yes.
You might have Zach Charbonnet on Thursday night in an amazing matchup, winning you a fantasy league. Right now, not expecting Ken Walker.
You can chill out in the cabaret, drinking some Chardonnay and starting Charbonnet.
We've talked a little bit.
Oh, I totally botched it.
You butchered that.
I totally butchered it. And you can tell that like I was practicing it, and I totally butchered it. And just rewind the last 30 seconds from my life.
We talked about Riley Moss. He's the number 2 cornerback for the Broncos. He's missed the last couple of games. They've been horrible without him. He is practicing in full. So Bengals, Broncos on Saturday.
I can't wait for that game.
Yeah, this should be a good
You're
one.
rooting hard for Cincinnati.
I'd like to see the Bengals keep playing. I mean, they're fun to watch.
They are fun to watch, for sure.
We keep talking about this, the Bengals. How about the Dolphins? The Dolphins have
an easy. The Colts are in the driver's seat, and they have a great schedule.
Yeah, but the Dolphins could sneak in. Like, Dolphins need to lose a game for the Bengals to even have a chance.
Right. Dolphins are going to do their thing. They're going to squeak into the playoffs and lose in the first round.
Yeah, right. They're going to go to Buffalo.
Right. Absolutely smashed.
Right. Let's get to some tough calls for Week 17. We start with the quarterbacks. So this is a list provided by Dave and Jamie. Justin, and I threw a couple in there on my own. But Justin Herbert, I was surprised to see him on the tough call list. He's at New England on Saturday, and I just figured he'd be a sit, Jamie, but you have him as a tough call.
Well, I mean, the Patriots aren't that great of a defense, and we know that they still have trouble running the ball. I do think they could run on the Patriots, depending on who the running back is, but 3 straight running backs have gone for at least 96 yards on the ground. And so Edwards could plod his way to a decent game, especially falling into the end zone. They could sort of manage their way. I don't want to start Justin Herbert, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's in that 20-point range just because of how New England's defense is. So he's not an outright sit, but he's certainly not somebody I would want to start. I don't have him ranked anywhere close to being a starter, but it wouldn't surprise me if he has a good game.
I have him ranked close to being a starter. We've seen this Patriots team, like 3 of their last 5 games, over 25 fantasy points to an opposing quarterback. Somehow, some way, they held Josh Allen down last week. I don't think they can keep that up. And I view Justin Herbert as a borderline top 12 quarterback, not necessarily like a slam dunk must start. He's debatable versus Purdy versus Geno. He's in that low end range. I think he's got that chance to get between 20 and 23.
Question from the chat: Anthony Richardson at the Giants or Justin Herbert at the Patriots?
Richardson easily for me.
I agree.
Okay. How about Bryce Young, the hot waiver wire guy, or Herbert?
I have Herbert ranked ahead of Young, but to me, that's closer than it is to the other guys Dave mentioned. I like all those guys better than Herbert this week.
All right. So Dave's a little higher on Herbert. And you know what? We'll go to Jordan Love in a minute here. Let's talk about Brock Purdy because, it's Purdy, it's Jennings. Basically, Dave said all of the 49ers except for George Kittle. And Garendo was practicing on Tuesday. So they're facing the Lions on Monday. Or no, I'm sorry. Garendo was expected to practice this week. Sorry. But anyway, they're facing
We'll find out Thursday on their first practice day. So if you have a tough call with any of the Wednesday running backs, so it sounds positive. So, if you're comparing him to, you're obviously starting Joe Mixon over him. If you're comparing him to the Steelers guys or the Chiefs guys, I would probably wait it out unless, of course, your backup option is, let's say, Patrick Taylor or Craig Reynolds. So if you don't have anybody that's better than Garendo, then you might want to play it safe. But he's in that same range as those guys with probably more upside based on the workload that he'll get.
All right, if we focus on Purdy here, I've kind of started out before I dug into this, being like, I don't know. I don't really want to start Purdy because I watched the game on Sunday. We all did. And I went back and I watched it again this morning, and it was ugly. He ended up with a pretty good game, 25.1 points against the Dolphins, but he had one of his lowest ADOTs of the year, getting the ball out really quick, screen after screen after screen, extremely uninspiring game offensively from the 49ers. I don't know, didn't look good in my opinion. And Jauan Jennings really suffered from that too, because it was just so much short garbage. And if you look at Brock Purdy's game log, you're not going to see this, but we have True Media, and you can see time to throw is one of the columns, right? It tells you how many seconds he's getting rid of the ball. A noticeable difference second half of the season compared to first half of the season. So I just wanted to bring that up. But then again, man, what a matchup this is against Detroit. Yep. So I got a little bit more excited about Brock Purdy. And the last 3 quarterbacks have just kind of torched them. Or 3 of the last 4 anyway.
At least 26 fantasy points to each.
So yeah, are we feeling Brock Purdy?
I like him much better than Herbert. I think just look at the matchup. You talk about pass rush. Well, the Lions have none, and so he's not going to have the same amount of time. His offensive line's still a mess, and I mean, again, I'll go back to what I said last week. It happened again. Coming off of a loss, his numbers are always good. I don't know what it is. It's now, lowered a little bit. It was 26 points in 4 of his last 5 losses. Now it's 25 points in 5 of his last 6. So they're in that situation where they should be able to have success throwing on this team. I don't know how much success allowed running on this team because the Lions' run defense is still okay, as we saw against DeAndre Swift, but their defense is by far a weakness for the Lions right now. Like, this game could be a shootout. It could be a really fun game, because of how the Lions offense is basically unstoppable at this point. And Jared Goff showed he could play outdoors. There's supposed to be a lot of rain on Sunday. Thankfully, this game is on Monday. So we don't have to worry about any weather issues for either quarterback. I don't know. I think Purdy's going to have a big game.
I think it's possible. I spent my morning watching the Bears-Lions film, and that Lions defense, you said it, Jamie, like they had a hard time getting pressure on Caleb Williams with a backup left tackle. So it makes me think that last week the Niners had to get the ball out of Purdy's hands because of the matchup against Miami, because of the offensive line, and because they didn't have a run game. So, like, that's the replacement for the run game in San Francisco, is just screening the ball out. And Chicago did a little bit of that too. Chicago does a little bit of that every week. I wonder if they change it up with Garendo back because they'll feel more confident in being able to run the ball. And certainly there should be a little bit more time for Brock Purdy to throw downfield. We're not going to have Jauan Jennings lined up against Jalen Ramsey. And Debo played with more physicality last week than he had in a while. And I'm kind of encouraged. I'm pretty much talking myself into Purdy over Justin Herbert as we sit here right now.
Yeah, I mean, I said on yesterday's show, I have Purdy versus Bo Nix, and
yeah, I'm not going to go that far with Purdy, but
I don't know, man. Like, they both have good matchups. I think I trust Purdy. Like, right now, I think I'm going to start Purdy. You guys wouldn't?
They're close enough for me. I don't have a problem with that. Bo Nix is my start of the week, so I expect him to have a huge game. But it's a very similar situation with both these guys.
Now oh no!
How do I sit Bo Nix now? Now you just like
well, you don't sit Bo Nix because it could end up being an absolute shoot. That's your game of the week. Is Denver at Cincinnati?
I just don't think that Bo Nix is like playing that well right now. I don't know.
I thought
he played pretty well in the first half last week.
First half.
Three games in a row, over 20 points on the road. So he's been good in these spots. One of those was at Kansas City, for example. So I don't know. I mean, there's so much on the line for the Broncos. I think
on the line for me. Who cares about the Broncos? I'm facing Heath in 2 finals. I can't lose those. You kidding?
You have the same quarterback decision in both?
No, I got Baker in one and Purdy versus Nix in the other. No.
I have one finals where I have I'm carrying 3 quarterbacks. I have to make a decision between Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix, and Sam Darnold. So it's the worst decision.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's Darnold, right?
I think it's Baker.
Baker's a guy that like I could not say don't start, but I'm a little nervous about him.
I mean, he's played the Panthers 3 times now in his Bucs career, and he's been bad every time.
Every time? Yeah, because you can just run all over them.
They can't just run all over them,
yeah. All right.
He also has the most upside of that group.
All right, let's go with Jordan Love here. Jordan Love at Minnesota, and really it's like over the last 6 games since their bye, this team has the 2nd lowest pass rate in the NFL. Jordan Love is
pass attempts or less in every game.
Yeah, and Jordan Love is actually leading the NFL by a wide margin in yards per attempt. So yes, if he throws more, he'll be less efficient, but he's playing very well. He's just not throwing enough. Will that change in this game? Because Jordan Love has really not been someone that we should be starting. In retrospect, looking at the points, shouldn't have been a starter. But is he a starter this week?
So that's the question. And I think when you get to this point in the season, unless your quarterback situation is questionable, you're probably going to start the guy who got you here. So you have a question, I have a question. I think Jordan Love, behind almost all the guys we mentioned, like I would start him over Herbert just because I think there's a little bit more upside there. But that's where he is for me. He's in the teens. And the week 4 game, before the bye, before things changed, before their defense got better, he threw 56 attempts in that game against the Packers. He threw for over 380 yards. He threw 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And so that was the game when he was coming back from I forget if it was the groin or knee injury, one of the 2. He was not 100%. And so you mentioned it. It's hard to run on the Vikings. They're the 2nd best run defense in the NFL in real life, and they do a great job in shutting down fantasy running backs. Now, this is a different team because Josh Jacobs is awesome, and he'll get plays in the passing game. So this isn't a sit Josh Jacobs dilemma by any stretch. You also have potentially no Christian Watson, so their field stretcher may not be there also, so that could sort of change how they operate. Mm-hmm. I think if this game's close, they're probably going to keep their offense very similar and not make Jordan Love throw the ball 50 times or 40 times. If the game is out of hand, which you'd like to see because there's a chance for a great shootout here with these two teams, then we could see Jordan Love air it out, and then he's going to be a great starter. So I think for redraft purposes, he's probably a sit. For DFS purposes, he could win you a tournament because I don't think a lot of people are going to use Jordan Love as their quarterback for this week. So it can go either way, and that's why it's a tough call for me.
I'm going to ask if he's behind Brock Purdy and Justin Herbert in a moment, but first we got to take a break. But first, we got to tell you about BetMGM. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, please use the bonus code FANTASY. First of all, if you want to support our podcast, always support our sponsors, right? It's very important for us, and we'd appreciate it. So sign up for BetMGM, use the bonus code FANTASY, and you're going to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. You just download the BetMGM app, and you use the bonus code FANTASY, deposit at least $10, and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. We're going to finish up our quarterbacks discussion here, get to some running backs after this on FFT. Okay, so is Jordan Love, where is he with Justin Herbert and Brock Purdy?
Same range behind Purdy. I think Purdy just got much more upside if everything goes according to plan. Love could be nuclear. He really could. I'm worried about Herbert, to be honest. Just low scoring game feels like against the Patriots on the road. So I would go Purdy, skip a few, then Love, then Herbert.
I see it the same way. You can look at Love and Herbert and figure they've got the same type of floor, and Love has the slightly higher ceiling.
But Love's floor has actually been decent, 21, 22 points.
Sure.
Herbert's been a little bit lower than that.
I think it could be about the same. I will add that if Dobbins is back for the Chargers, that'll make me like Herbert even less because now they can run the ball.
So let's see. It was the last 6 games since their bye. Love has scored 22.2, 18.7, 23, 16.5, 21.6, and 13.5 fantasy points at 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. All right, to the running backs. Breece Hall, Jamie, you called him a tough call. Hall is a tough call. He's had a great matchup, though. Man, this team's Buffalo stinks against running backs, and one of his best games all year was against Buffalo. In fact, Breece Hall, let's see if I get this little stat queued up here. He has not had a run longer than 18 yards since week 4.
Yeah.
And that was Buffalo. He had a 42-yard run against Buffalo. Since then, his yards per carry is good, but he's not making explosive plays. That's crazy.
Wait, he hasn't had one since week 4?
Yeah.
But they played Buffalo in week 6.
Oh, then it was week 6 then. Sorry. Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. It's 8 games. 8 games, though, since week 6. No run longer than 18 yards. Yeah, why is he a tough call?
He had the run before the Buffalo game.
Yeah. He played them twice. Why is this a tough call for you?
I mean, have we seen Breece Hall the last month since the Colts game? It's been a struggle, so their second left tackle is now gone. You got clearly a team in disarray, and I do think if they keep the game close early, then there's a chance for Breece Hall to come out and play well. Well, you just saw the Bills get punched in the mouth by the Patriots. I think they got their wake-up call. And so now you have potential of Josh Allen and the Bills offense going out and just stomping the Jets early. And then Breece Hall's really been ineffective in the passing game until last week, which hopefully is something that we see again. But is Braylon Allen now healthy after dealing with a back injury? Isaiah Davis now a little healthier after playing through an injury last week. So I'm just concerned. I think if Breece Hall, again, he's still a number 2 running back. I feel similar about him and Joe Mixon, guys that you can't bench unless you're just in a great spot. He's in the teens. Normally, if this was Breece Hall preseason, early season, he'd be top 5 running back. So there's just a lot of concern for me with the offensive line being what it is. You got Rodgers on a bad knee. We saw the pitfalls of what this offense can be when they're not playing the Jaguars, for example. And just think about his last few weeks, not playing, late touchdown against Jacksonville to save his numbers. Finally involved in the passing game last week, but not great running the ball. And now again, you have just more concern. So matchup is great. I'm just a little worried.
Matchup is great. We've seen 10 running backs get at least 10 non-PPR points against Buffalo in their last 11 games. And opportunity is great. We saw his snap share go up last week. It was like 77%.
But that's because both backups were banged up during the week.
I know, but he still played it, and he still got a lot of checkdowns. But the eye test is bad. He doesn't look explosive at all. And so you're just hoping, if you start him, you're hoping that the matchup is good to him, that he stays in the game plan, and that they don't just go into full-blown Aaron Rodgers YOLO mode, and that he still picks up a bunch of catches. He's easier to start as a number 2 running back in full PPR than non-PPR. But yeah, Breece does not look right at all, and that's what makes him a tough call.
Okay. Would you start Breece Hall or DeAndre Swift, who we're going to talk about in a bit?
Hall.
Agreed.
Breece Hall or Joe Mixon?
Mixon. I have them back-to-back right now. Mixon.
All right, let's go to Rachaad White. I put him in the notes here. I feel like he's a tough call because he produces just about every game, Dave. You know, it's not always the way that you want to see it. It's weird. You know, he scores a lot of receiving touchdowns. And last week he had 7 catches. 6 of them came in the second half in a game they were trailing. They haven't been trailing a lot lately, and they're probably not going to be trailing in this game. Rachaad White, 3 carries against Dallas. He had 15 carries the week before. So it's weird. He falls into production. It doesn't seem to be the most reliable way. I consider Rachaad White a tough call. Do you?
I do too, but he's more of a low-end number 2 running back in full PPR, and he's an easy call in non-PPR. I'd stay away from him. Bucky Irving's taken over. Everyone can see that just from watching the games. Where Rachaad White fits in is still passing down situations. Coaching staff still likes him. They still want to utilize him. But I don't like his chances to score as much because Bucky's been getting those opportunities, especially lately. And we know that he's not an efficient runner. And the only time he's efficient as a pass catcher is when he either has volume or he breaks away on a catch and run for a big gain. So I don't view him as someone who's a must start by any stretch. He's one of those running backs that you're going to start because you don't have anybody better.
I wonder how much the fumble impacts his playing time.
I bet it's minimal.
I would assume that's the case, but I mean that was not a game losing play, but it was pretty decisive, nail in the coffin when they're trying to come back against the Cowboys. Sure. And how he was carrying the ball before he fumbled, the play itself. I saw one quote from Jalen McMillan, which obviously doesn't speak any volumes because he's a rookie wide receiver, but he was saying, nobody's pointing the finger at him, obviously. So you wonder how just the coaching staff feels when you have somebody else there. It's not like there's not a capable player. As you said, Bucky Irving's been taking over every time he's been healthy. So just wonder, and Sean Tucker is also there too. You just wonder if the fumble did cost him a few snaps, a few opportunities, whatever the game flow is. Clearly, if they're behind, he's going to play because they trust him the most in passing situations. But if they're playing with the lead,
he's a no-go.
Is Tucker the second guy up as opposed to Rachaad White? So I'm a little concerned. I agree.
That's what I wanted to bring up, right? Because he had 3 carries last week, and it's very unpredictable if he's going to have 10, if he's going to have 3, whatever. But his targets had been super low. He had 7 catches last week. I think he had 7 catches in his previous 4 or 5 games combined before that, and they had kept winning, and they had been winning pretty low-scoring games, at least the opposing team. So they're playing Carolina this week. I wanted to bring up that downside with Rachaad White because if he's once again getting hardly any carries, and is only getting 1 to 2 catches, then he's going to have to score a touchdown or he could crush you. So our last question: Rachaad White or DeAndre Swift? I'll go back to him because I know nobody's going to be super excited about starting Swift.
I would still lean White in PPR, in non PPR and half PPR. I'd go Swift.
Not me. I'd go Swift across the board.
All right, Jamie,
I think just one thing about your point, Adam. The Panthers are going to score. They've been scoring.
I hope so. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Brian Robinson Jr. against the Falcons. Boy, terrible the last 2 weeks. I know I'm going to have to decide between Jerome Ford and Brian Robinson Jr., which I don't like either guy that much this week. But how do you feel about him, Jamie, Brian Robinson?
Yeah, one of my father-son leagues, we're starting both those guys. So, yeah, we're a little screwed at running back. Again, nervous. What we've seen from Robinson, tough rushing against the Saints. And that, is frustrating after you see how the Packers just ran on them with ease. And then the fumble issues against the Eagles and seeing McNichols play a lot more. You wonder if Robinson is Maybe still dealing with the injury that plagued him a few weeks ago. Just not right. Just doesn't look right. And I know they've had some center issues. Biotis has missed some time also, so that's part of it. But you can run on the Falcons, just can't score on the Falcons. So we'll see how they use him and how productive he is. And hopefully they're playing with a lead where he can get in some opportunities. So I think he's behind Breece Hall, he's behind Joe Mixon. I have him behind Jerome Ford right now. So he's kind of like the bridge for me of like, okay, this is I'll start him if I have to, but I don't love it. And ahead of the the waiver wire guys, for example.
The Falcons have allowed a run of 10 or more yards from a running back on 14% of their defensive plays in their past 4 games. That is very high. And so I am hoping that Brian Robinson can still get a lot of work. And he dominated snaps last week. He played 5 of 6 snaps inside the 10. I'm hoping that he can get you like 70 rushing yards and maybe a touchdown. I think that game could be a high-scoring game too. I don't mind him. He's a low end number 2 running back, and I've got him exactly where Jamie's got him, behind all those names that he said. But I think he does have a decent chance to score against the Falcons and certainly get more work than he got last week.
Let's go to the wide receivers here. Drake London is at Washington. So in this same game, he had 5 catches for 59 yards on 8 targets against the Giants. That's 10.9 PPR fantasy points, which is a bad game for him. But he only played 73% of the snaps. He missed some time with an injury. Appears to be okay. He had 1 end zone target. It was knocked away by Deonte Banks. The Commanders have actually been pretty solid against wide receivers, going back for like 11 games. They've done pretty well. Overall, they're 18th against receivers. Dave, is this a tough call for you, Drake London at Washington?
It is in half and non-PPR, but not in full PPR. I think you keep using London just as you have been for the better part of the season. 16 or more PPR points to 4 wide receivers in their last 9 games. That's scary. Only 2 wide receivers have more than 90 yards and not even 100 yards in those 9 games. But when you start Drake London, you're starting him for the volume. He had 8 targets, and Penix dropped back 27 times. So that's a huge target share for the game. And because he didn't play the full game, I bet his target per route run rate was through the roof. So I'm still going to count on him to get those short and intermediate targets. I think he's going to be able to get open against the secondary. And I think he can certainly be better than where he was last week. And maybe he can be one of those rare wide receivers to get 16 plus in full PPR.
I don't disagree with anything Dave said, but my concern is twofold. You have a potential injury here. You have threefold. You have potential injury here. You have a rookie quarterback making his first road start. And you have Marshawn Lattimore trailing A.J. Brown last week and frustrating him at times, and pass interference, grabbing him, mugging him every other time. So I wonder if he's going to follow Drake London. I wonder if we're going to lose some opportunities because of some potential penalties, because Lattimore is just not the same player anymore.
Can I just interrupt real quick? Because he hurt his hamstring.
Right. I'm not sure if he's playing.
Oh, well, that changes things a little bit. If Lattimore's
is he
on the injury report?
Well, they haven't released it, I don't think, right? But he did leave with a hamstring injury. So,
and remember how long it took him to even get on the field for Washington? They traded for him, and then I think he missed like 3 games before he got on the field.
Oh yeah, I think plotted his return against the Saints. So well, that would change some things, but. If Lattimore plays, I'm a little concerned. I mean, you're not benching Drake London, but I think
anybody looked into the history of Drake London versus Marshawn Lattimore?
I mean, it's very extensive.
Lattimore, the only wide receiver that he ever shadowed, really, in his recent years with the Saints, was Evans. He always stayed on one side.
Didn't he shadow A.J. Brown last week?
No, I said with the Saints.
Oh,
right.
And I actually don't think he did shadow A.J. Brown last week, but I'm not positive about that. He saw him obviously, but I don't think he shadowed him. I don't think. So London or Malik Neighbors against the Colts?
I have that decision to make in one league. In PPR, I'm going to go Neighbors.
I've got London 1 spot ahead of Neighbors in PPR.
Well, here's another question related to that game from our chat. Darnell Mooney or Xavier Worthy?
I'd go Worthy.
I would too.
Would you start Drake London or Brian Robinson Jr.?
London.
Agreed.
Drake London or who's the first running? Oh, Breece Hall.
London.
Agreed.
Let's go to Ladd McConkey. Another one I was surprised to see on the list, Jamie. How come you felt Ladd McConkey is a tough call? He's been very consistent, and he's the number 15 wide receiver in fantasy in his last 7 games.
Just the game flow. I think, again, the Chargers play with the lead. I don't think McConkey has a ton of targets in this game. I don't think we see Justin Herbert throwing a lot in this game. So he's not somebody you're sitting again. Just, comparing him to some of the guys, like 15 through 24. He's at the tail end for me. So.
London or McConkey?
Huh?
London or McConkey?
London.
I'll take McConkey.
And Schaefer wants to know Adam Thielen or Drake London?
London.
Same.
Thielen and McConkey's close for me.
I feel like I am a little worried about Drake London just because, like I said on Beyond the Box Score, I mean, the Giants did nothing to fluster Michael Penix, and just they left the middle of the field wide open all game. They were awful. This is a legitimate defense with real football players that he's so, I could see Penix having a really bad game, right. But I'm not saying that's going to happen.
Or you could see him have a really good game.
I could see him having a prolific game where he's throwing a lot. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he's going to go in there and play great, but I'm just saying it's a wide range of outcomes. That's why it's tough. That's why these are tough calls. All right, Jauan Jennings against Detroit. So he's coming off a bad game. 9.1 fantasy points at Miami. He had a 16.2% target share. So here's a bad note followed by a good note. 16.2% target share. That's horrible. But Jauan Jennings had a target share of 27% or higher in 6 straight games before the Miami game. That's great. So, Dave, is Jauan Jennings, well, we said all the Niners are a tough call. Is Jauan Jennings a tough call for you against a team that gives up the 4th most fantasy points to receivers?
After watching the Lions defense this morning, I'm much more interested in starting Jauan Jennings. He was buried in my rankings to start the day.
It's the game of the week, yeah! Monday night fantasy special! It's the Niners and the Lions, hey! Deciding league championships, yeah!
The NFL always does a good job scheduling the last game of Week 17 as one that should swing a lot of fantasy championships. And I think this one qualifies for sure. Look at you jamming out. There were a lot of candidates for Game of the Week. I dig that you chose this one, and I do think the 49ers will get up for it. But like I was saying, this Lions defense had a hard time getting pressure on Caleb Williams last week. We know they're beat up all across that defensive line. Their secondary's beat up as well. If you have the chance, go look at the last 2 big throws that Caleb Williams made against this defense before halftime. They were awesome throws. The touchdown to Keenan Allen was that's why you took that quarterback with the number 1 overall pick. Should be a good bounce back opportunity for Brock Purdy. We talked about that as well. Not that he was terrible for fantasy last week, but I think he can end up having a better game for the Niners. I think the Niners could win this game because the Lions defense is so bad. And yes, I'm very interested in starting Jauan Jennings. He will be in that low end number 2, high end number 3 wide receiver range.
I got more excited. Another guy, I kind of had just a little so frustrated, but I think the matchup could change everything. And dude, I can't wait to talk about Caleb Williams because this guy looked great last week. He
was streaky, but when he looked good, he looked really good.
How about the 4th and 1 throw he threw
to Rome Odunze?
The throw and the catch. I mean, I feel
catch was a little bit more impressive than the throw. He had a couple of guys open underneath that he would have been able to convert for the first down.
All right. Well, I think Bears fans should have been very, very happy with it.
Encouraging, no question.
All right, last one here. We'll skip the tight ends as we're going a little long here. But Jameson Williams, I think he's perennially in the tough call category here. Coming off a big game. I could give you a couple notes of why I'm afraid of Jameson Williams, but this is the game of the week, and we could have a lot of points. He's at San Francisco Monday.
He's very similar to Jennings. I like Jennings a little bit better because I think he's safer, but similar range in terms of rankings. You saw the upside, and I like the fact that they're talking up him getting 1,000 yards, which is kind of cool. That he's missed some time again, and for what his career has been. So it's exciting that it's in the range of possibilities. He's one of those guys that can win you your week. He could also lose you your week, as we've seen, a few times this season as well. Playing outdoors, playing on the road. Prior to last week, he hadn't been great. So I think he's just the typical boom bust number 3 receiver.
Dave, Jameson Williams or Jauan Jennings?
Jennings.
Jameson Williams or Darnell Mooney?
Jameson.
Jameson Williams or any Packers receiver?
Jameson.
Deebo Samuel or Jameson?
Jameson.
Okay. So here's my issue with Jameson Williams. Well, first of all, the good, right? Like he's
Mooney or Jameson. I would take Mooney.
Okay. He's got a pretty good floor, I think. I'm just going to look at his games since he came back in week 10. He's played 7 games. So he's got a pretty good floor. He usually gets about 6 to 8 targets. But the 2 big games he had, Jacksonville and Chicago. Against Jacksonville, he had a 64-yard touchdown catch. Against Chicago, he had an 82-yard touchdown catch. Jacksonville allows the most big plays in football. The Bears allow the 4th most big plays in football. The 49ers allow the fewest. In fact, they allow the fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. We got to take them seriously as a really tough matchup.
Exhibit A, Tyreek Hill last week.
Exactly. No, Tyreek could have had a big game though. Like great.
We say that every week with Tyreek.
Right, but even he was like, man, I haven't got enough practice reps in. I dropped a touchdown, this and that. But they have been very good, and they don't give up big plays. So that's why it's tough. All right, we'll talk about him more on Friday's show. We're going to take a break, come back, and Seattle at Chicago after this.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance, but you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount Plus. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
All right, here we go. Seattle at Chicago. Dave, the last we needed a big one. This is the Thursday finale. This is an interesting game, guys, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. I just feel like interesting game, interesting teams could go in any direction here. I'm looking forward to it, and I actually think it's a fairly difficult one to preview. Jamie, your thoughts?
It's a little difficult, I guess. Seattle coming off a tough loss, but they clearly are the better team here. So we'll see how things go from a fantasy perspective. I think there's some easy starts, and just based on how these two teams have been operating. I still think you have to put Caleb in the questionable quarterback situation. Geno's obviously in the questionable quarterback situation. The running backs, there's one must start. There's one questionable guy in DeAndre Swift. And there's, I think, probably 3 must start receivers.
All right, let's go through it here. So we talked about Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, and Justin Herbert earlier. Caleb Williams versus those guys.
Caleb's ahead of them for me.
Same.
Interesting. Okay. How about Geno Smith versus those guys?
I like Geno better than Herbert and Love.
Same. Purdy's ahead of him, though. Purdy over Geno.
It's pretty obvious if you throw the ball against the Bears, you can have success. But a lot of teams don't do that. They run the ball against the Bears. So they have a horrible run defense, which is why Zach Charbonnet is a must start. Now, what if Ken Walker plays?
I don't think he's playing, but sure. If he plays, you got to assume that Walker is going to get the majority of touches. I mean, that's just been the MO every time he's been on the field.
So if he plays, and we've talked about like Rachaad White being a tough call, would you go with Ken Walker or Rachaad White?
Walker would be in that group for me of Mixon and Hall and Brian Robinson and Jerome Ford. So that's running back 16, 17, 18, 19 for me. So he'd be right around there.
He'd be behind those guys for me, but that's the range. It's a no confidence vote. He hasn't played well. We don't know what his role will be. Although we could assume that his role will stay as being the primary guy for the Seahawks. Let me see if I can find what his snaps were last week before he got hurt. 58% of the snaps. They split the ball 3 ways last week. That's something we haven't really seen from Seattle. Walker, 58%, Charbonnet, 24%, McIntosh, 22%. Maybe McIntosh got an extra bit of run because Walker left late in the 4th quarter.
No, Dave, I honestly think it was because Charbonnet came into the game hurt. That's what they said. They said Charbonnet was limited, but he's expected to be like normal, full go for him this week.
Well, he played every single 3rd down snap for Seattle. Charbonnet did, and half their snaps inside the 10.
Okay, but that's just what they said coming out of it. That's what Mike McDonald said, that Charbonnet just wasn't.
Well, how would he know?
All right. So anyway, I want to stay on. We'll go back to Caleb Williams, but with Geno Smith or Bryce Young this week?
Geno Smith.
All right. Yeah, it's five of the last 6 quarterbacks to face the Bears have scored 20 or more fantasy points. All right. So the wide receivers, JSN's a no-brainer, right? Just
Top 10 receiver.
Starter sit DK Metcalf.
So he's in the same range as Jauan Jennings and Jameson Williams and Darnell Mooney and those guys. I was a little disappointed last week after Ryan Grubb came out and said what he said about we have to get him the ball more and get him more targets and get him more involved and get the big guy going and all this stuff. And he had 4 targets, right? It was 4?
He had 7 targets.
7 targets, excuse me. 3 catches, right?
Right.
So
nice touchdown catch.
That to me is not getting the big guy going, So I think he's just kind of is what he is, because if he doesn't score that touchdown, he was basically non-existent in the second half.
Yep.
So could he have a big game here? Obviously, this Bears defense is terrible, but also there's enough of a sample size since he's come back from knee injury that he's just probably not right.
Yes.
And so I think you're just talking about a borderline starter. If he's been in your lineup all this time, don't go away from it because it's a great matchup. But if you have other options, which a lot of people do, like I would start Jalen McMillan over DK Metcalf this week. I think there's just more upside based on what we've seen from his sample size in the last 3 games compared to DK Metcalf's last 3 games. So, and a good matchup. So for me, it's a guy like McMillan off the waiver wire. So number 3 receiver, but not a lot of faith.
And you know what? The 7 targets wouldn't be bad if it were 30 passes, but it was 43 pass attempts for Geno Smith last week, and only 7 went to Metcalf. So here's something that scares me a little bit on Metcalf. He's had a target share of 20.7% or lower in 3 straight games and 4 of his last 5 games. That is not good. And the Bears see the fewest wide receiver targets in football. So, it's hard to see him getting more than 7. And if you just do some math and he's going to get a 20% target share and Geno Smith might throw 30 passes, that's 6 targets. But maybe he'll throw more. Like the Bears hold up their end of the bargain. Maybe he'll throw more. All right, sit Noah Fant and Caleb Williams. Okay, so Dave, how do you feel about Caleb Williams? I think Jamie's fairly high on him.
I'm fairly high on him as well. Really was encouraged by what we saw last week. He wasn't nearly as jittery and jumpy in the pocket as he was in weeks prior, and I think it was because he was taking on a team that didn't have a lethal pass rush. Yeah, the Lions got to him. They eventually got home in the second half, but before that, he did a lot of damage. And Seattle's pass rush really over the last month hasn't been great. It's certainly not special. They had a game against Green Bay where they did blitz a lot. They did get a lot of pressure. They had 0 sacks. And they would probably get a couple of sacks of Caleb Williams. But I've been impressed with how he's been throwing, albeit streaky, like I said. He's run the ball well a little bit too, so he'll help boost that fantasy floor. I think he's got upside to finish as a top 5 fantasy quarterback this week.
Caleb or Bo Nix?
They're back-to-back for me. I've got Nix a spot ahead.
Who'd you say, Jamie?
Nix.
Caleb or Richardson?
Caleb.
I think that's, pretty much because we covered it. We know you like him.
Arnold over Caleb, Bo Nix over Caleb, Baker over Caleb, all the other studs over Caleb, everybody else behind Caleb. Top 10 in the rankings, top 5 upside.
You consider Goff to be one of those studs,
yes,
right?
He's a must.
DeAndre Swift, starter sit.
I think he's a flex at best. I mean, he had a very good matchup last week and did not take advantage of it. I know the Lions' numbers are good, but their defense is just so beat up. So he's just the track record is there for him at this point. So again, if he's been your starter, I think Amir Abdullah makes more sense in PPR, for example. But otherwise, he just is what he is. I mean, there's just we didn't see Roschon Johnson very much last week. Does that change?
How many Bears wide receivers would you start over Swift? Well, let's start with Swift. How many would you start over Swift?
2.
And
the main 2.
How many would you start over Metcalf?
2.
Yeah.
And who's your favorite? Allen?
Yes.
Allen's borderline number 1 receiver at this point.
Yeah,
It's hard to overlook what he's done.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, I got a question in the chat. DJ Moore or Ladd McConkey?
They're very close for me. I'd go more.
I'll take Ladd. I think it's closer in full PPR than non-PPR.
DJ Moore or Jauan Jennings?
More.
I'll take Moore.
Moore is so annoying. It just...
I might take Jennings in non and half.
I feel like he doesn't have that much upside because he's
right. Because like all of his targets are
yeah
right at the line of scrimmage. It's weird. It's weird how Keenan Allen has become the go-to guy. Although DJ Moore did have that deep 25-yard hitch, or no, it was, who cares what it was? It was an in-breaking route. The timing was good, but he doesn't get enough of those types of plays. Most of those plays have been going to Keenan Allen, a few to Odunze. So that until I wish we had seen a lot more downfield stuff for DJ Moore in the last week or two. And if that were the case, then I'd be way more in on DJ Moore. I'm kind of in on DJ Moore just to begin with, because I think the Bears will throw a lot in this game.
All right. If any more questions for this game, please fire
How
away.
do you feel about Swift versus Dowdle? That's one I've been fighting.
They're back-to-back for me. I don't like Dowdle this week at all, but I just can't trust DeAndre.
Neither do I.
Yeah, I feel that.
I'm having a hard time finding running backs to round out my top 24.
Yes.
Like the Raiders guys are in there. I don't mind starting the Raiders guys this week.
Keenan Allen or George? Keenan Allen or George Pickens? Allen?
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yes.
And then you're going to have to probably start Caleb Williams over Jalen Hurts unless we know anything on Thursday. So sorry about that.
Not a bad fallback option.
Yeah, that's honestly, you shouldn't be sorry for that.
Keenan Allen or Adam Thielen?
Allen.
Yeah.
I will start Allen over Thielen.
Last week, I didn't do it. I wanted to start Keenan Allen over Garrett Wilson. I am absolutely doing it this week.
Yeah, you should.
And
although he's the squeaky wheel this week.
Yeah, I know. But I might start him over Jauan Jennings.
I would do that. Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, like, he's a squeaky wheel. His coach said it, but Aaron Rodgers was like, Aaron Rodgers was like, yeah, I don't agree that we need to get the ball to Garrett Wilson.
Well, it is a funny conversation because he's fourth in the NFL in targets.
I know. Question here from Ken: DJ Moore or Adam Thielen, McMillan, Worthy, Kareem Hunt. I guess he just needs one for that.
Moore, Thielen, Worthy, McMillan, Hunt in that order.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. That's it. Oh, DSTs.
I'd pass on both.
Seattle's not bad simply because they will get to Caleb Williams more so than the Lions did. So they are a top 12 DST this week.
The Bears allow the 6th most fantasy points to DSTs, even when they've been playing better. I hope
that's without him throwing interceptions. That just tells you how much he gets sacked.
It's true. Okay, so Dave, hit it. Thursday night football. It's the end.
Well, but you've got to say.
That's it for Thursday night football. And I've got to go open some presents. My kids are waiting so patiently. So let's read some emails in 5 minutes. Here we go. This is from Phil. Sit one. Oh, Phil's from Germany, and he got a kick out of my Spiel der Volksschau. Sit one. Garrett Wilson, Malik Neighbors, Drake London, or Breece Hall in half PPR.
It's either Neighbors or Breece.
Give me the names again.
Garrett Wilson, Malik Neighbors, Drake London, Breece Hall. Sit one, half PPR.
I'll sit Breece.
I think I'll sit Neighbors.
From Drew in Seattle, half PPR league, I need 3. Jauan Jennings, DK Metcalf, Hollywood Brown, AJ Brown, Brian Robinson, Christian Watson.
One more time the names.
Yeah, so we're not going to start Watson. We're not going to start Hollywood Brown. So we need 3 of these 4. Jauan Jennings, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Brian Robinson, half PPR.
Yeah, Robinson's the odd man out.
Say Robinson.
This is from Taco, half PPR, pick
Love
one.
you.
Yeah, you're delicious.
Only on Tuesdays.
Swift, Garendo, Pickens, pick one.
Wow, that's a tough call because you can't wait out Garendo if you got to play Pickens. PPR?
Yeah, half.
I'll go Pickens.
By the way, no Chris Jones today for the Chiefs. We're so unlikely to play. And yes, start Kittle over Mark Andrews. I don't have a name here. James Cook or Malik Neighbors or Drake London this week?
James Cook.
Another email from Germany. Wow. All right, this is from Mitch from the hot dog capital of the Midwest.
Well, Dave's Midwest is probably Oregon, right?
I mean, they are in the Big Ten.
They are. It's true.
Yeah.
It says, Dear Rob, John, Brandon, and Rickon. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Game of Thrones.
I happened to stumble on the end of season 1. It was on HBO when I was flipping through channels. It's just so amazing.
How does it end?
It ends with Daenerys burning.
Spoilers.
Yeah. All right, I gotcha.
I'm teasing the show.
Debut of the dragon.
Yeah, baby. All right, Brian Thomas Jr. or Bucky Irving, half PPR.
Ooh.
Oh boy, who are you sitting?
I think it's got to be BTJ.
So yeah, so you can tell me if he should sit someone else. He's starting AJ Brown and Mike Evans, Kyron Williams and Chase Brown.
I probably would sit Evans.
Who's the first receiver you said? AJ Brown? I would sit AJ Brown if it's Pickett. I would sit Evans if it's not.
Okay. Oh gosh, what Evans did to Carolina last time, though.
What Bucky did to Carolina last time.
That's true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Thomas has been doing to everybody in the last month.
Right.
Yeah. He. By the way, I saw this from our research team. Did you see the email they sent?
No, but I think let me see if I know where you're going. Brian Thomas Jr. is on the highest percentage of teams in the finals.
No.
Oh.
This is an NFL stat that you will love. He has the He is. I forget the number. I won't. I'll see. I'll give you the number tomorrow. But he has.
This is such a good stat.
The most 30-yard plus receptions for a rookie. He's in the same range as Jamar Chase, Randy Moss. There's some Mike Evans. Wow. There's somebody else in there. It's just stud after stud after stud. Like he's on pace to be a monster, absolute freaking monster.
So good. All right, Tyler Allen.
Hold on. Here's. I'm reading the same thing. If he gets a touchdown against Tennessee, he will be in the same group, 1,000 yards receiving and 10 plus touchdowns.
Yeah, go lower.
The rookie. Well, I'm just going to give you this list of names first.
I gotta go. Let's go.
Moss, Evans, OBJ, Jamar Chase.
Okay, sorry. Tyler Allen says he made 8 of 10 finals. Awesome. Bench 1 and half PPR. Tyreek Hill, Zay Flowers, Jerome Ford, Jameson Williams.
Jameson.
I'm too busy looking at Brian Thomas Jr. stats. I didn't hear the question.
From Justin, half PPR, pick 3. Saquon, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Jonathan Taylor. Yikes.
Pick 3 of what's the first name?
Saquon,
I would say Chase Brown.
Sit Brown.
Say it again.
He's got studs.
Saquon, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Jonathan Taylor.
Oh my God. In PPR?
Half.
Yeah, let's make it consensus at Chase Brown.
All right, rapid fire from Connor. Start 2. Thielen, Shakir, Dowdle, Ford, Spears. And one of them has to be a running back. Thielen, Shakir, Dowdle, Ford, Spears.
So Thielen over Shakir for me, and then you can't start Shakir, so
Ford.
Unless
somehow Tony Pollard's out.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Then you're going Spears for sure.
Half PPR, pick 1. Cup, Ford, Thielen, Myers.
Ford or Myers?
I'm going Thielen. Really? I'm going Thielen. You guys are going Myers? Ford? From George, start 2 in PPR. Jacobs, Taylor, Hubbard, Charbonnet.
Taylor and Charbonnet. Assuming Ken Walker's out on Thursday.
Yep.
And Tim is playing his wife, and he needs to win. Non-PPR. Start 1. Jacoby Myers, Jerry Jeudy, Tyjae Spears. And congratulations to your wife because she's going to beat you.
Jacoby.
Yeah.
Unless
I'm going to know what that's like. My son is about to hold it over my head for 9 months that he finished in the top 50 in Scott Fishbowl, and I did not even make the playoffs.
I thought he was like 9th.
He did. Well, he's made the final round. There's 50 teams. Only one team he might win the whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely will hold it over my head. He's already said, and I don't even do this for a living, Dad. Okay, pal.
All right. Merry Christmas, everybody. What? What'd you say?
The Brian Thomas stat.
I still don't know which one you were trying to talk about.
The 30-yard receptions.
How about 50-yard receptions?
Well, this is great. Merry Christmas, everybody.
It was 50-yard receptions by rookies. He's got 5 of them this year. That's tied with Randy Moss and Lee Evans and Chris Givens.
Oof.
And the leaders in the last 30 seasons, Jamar and A.J. Brown with 6.
Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today.